Welcome, brothers. I'm Johnny. I invite you to join me in this journey of the awakened masculine. Realize your potential and remember who you are. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the body and why physical discipline is a non-negotiable part of inner work. This week, I'm going to do things a little differently to the usual walk and talk, because I'm going to be talking about the body and physical discipline. I thought it might be useful for you to see some of the practices that I use in order to ground my mind in my body and foster that sacred connection, that sacred mind-body connection. So I've done this voiceover to accompany the footage of me carrying out these various practices. It is my understanding that the body is a really fundamental part of personal development and inner work. The mind-body connection is such a powerful thing. It cannot be ignored or even sidelined in favor of doing mental, spiritual, emotional work. The body is just as important as these other aspects. My own relationship with my body goes back quite a long way. I first started practicing yoga when I was in my early 20s, long before I had any kind of identity crisis or near-death experience. But at this time I began developing what I can only describe as a deep relationship with my own body. Not just using it, but listening to it and learning its language. At some point along the way, the numbing started with the various substances that I've spoken about, and that's when I began to lose the connection with my body. Alcohol and weed just killed that signal. They killed that relationship I had, and I was in my body physically, but I didn't have any real relationship with it. Many years later, when sobriety finally came, very gradually over several years, that connection, that signal between my mind and my body started to come back. So the yoga, breath work, physical training, they all contributed in their own ways of what I refer to as the sacred connection between the mind and body. It is one of the most fundamental relationships you have. It's more fundamental than a relationship you might have with your partner or your children or your work even. Because the thing that you have to understand is that everything you experience is filtered through your body in some way. Your body is how you experience the world. It's how you appear in this world, but it's also how you experience everything. I want to mention something that's often overlooked. For many men, this disconnection between the body and the mind wasn't really a conscious choice. This is often something that is inherited. Fathers who never talked about what they felt physically, generations before us who just treated the body as something that needed to be pushed through rather than listened to. That inheritance isn't anyone's fault, but it is our responsibility to break that generational inheritance, because restoring the connection between the mind and the body isn't just about personal development. It's actually also responsible for generational healing, and that healing can begin in your own body right now. Becoming a father, raising young children, and home educating it can often be a very intense experience. It's extremely demanding. At times, you're pushed to your physical, mental, and emotional limits. Anyone who has young kids will know what sleep deprivation can do to you. And obviously, young children haven't learned to regulate their emotions or their nervous systems. So you can often be dealing with multiple children screaming at you, sometimes in public places, where you get to experience what it's like when everyone around you is staring at you and judging you for how you choose to parent your children. And yeah, raising children has been one of the most demanding things that I've ever done. And it is possible, I think most men experience this as something that depletes them. What I actually found, kind of by accident really, was that it was actually training me to become more resilient, especially in chaotic situations. When I first started working in forestry and then later tree surgery, I found myself in some genuinely very high risk situations pretty much on a daily basis. So, working with heavy machinery, chainsaws, falling trees, climbing. It is not an exaggeration to say that you're working a very thin line with death pretty much on a daily basis. It only takes one slip up and you can kill yourself very easily, or even someone else can kill you if someone else makes a mistake. This requires a certain quality in your nervous system because you need to be alert at all times, but it's very important that you don't panic, because this can be very dangerous as well if you start panicking and behaving erratically. And what I found was that raising children and being in those intense, chaotic situations actually was perfect training for working in forestry and tree surgery. These situations had actually trained me for being able to regulate my nervous system during quite intense and dangerous situations. I always used to say to my workmates that it was actually oftentimes easier and less stressful to come to work than it was to stay at home and educate my young children. And, they would see this as a bit of a joke, but actually, I was deadly serious. It is much harder to be at home raising and educating young children than it is to go and do a highly dangerous job like forestry or tree surgery. I want to share something that's taken me many years to fully wrap my head around. The mind is not in the body. The body is in the mind. Our mind creates our body. I want to recommend a book which may help you to understand this concept a bit more deeply. Mark Gober has written many great books, but one of the most important books I believe that he's written is called An End to Upside Down Thinking. And this book addresses the issue of consciousness and where does consciousness originate. And it became very clear to me after reading this book that our minds are not actually in our brains. Our minds are not in our head. This has been quite literally proven over and over by people who've had near-death experiences, because they have become physically dead, but yet their mind is still intact and is still able to function and literally observe their physical body from a third person perspective. My lived experience actually points that way, that consciousness is the primary field and the body simply arises from within the mind. And one of the most profound things that body practices have taught me is the difference between thoughts that arise and the awareness that notices the thoughts arising. It is my belief and understanding that we don't think our thoughts think us. And once you practice these embodiment exercises, your capacity to observe thoughts without actually engaging with them becomes very obvious. And that space in between the thought and the actual engagement with the thought, that is where genuine presence lives. And that is where the man that your partner can actually trust can begin to emerge. Cold water, intense training, breath work, these things involve deliberately choosing discomfort. Voluntary hardship recalibrates your baseline. So after any serious physical effort or physical hardship, ordinary life just feels different. It feels sharper and you're able to appreciate it more. If you achieve a certain intensity in physical training and deep meditation, you get to a very similar state. Your body is quiet, your mind is clear, and the present moment becomes fully accessible. You know, these things aren't trends, they're technologies of the consciousness that the body has always had access to. And it's just about accessing those technologies. A truly present man operates from three centers all at once: mind, heart, and physical body. And this includes the vital creative energy that we have in our lower body. And when all three of these things are in coherence, any man can have access to a quality of presence that is just not available when any one of them is offline. I would say most men have never been taught to consciously work with that lower body energy. It gets discharged unconsciously or maybe even suppressed entirely. But if it's consciously conserved and directed, it feeds directly into this presence that I'm talking about. It feeds into creativity and genuine aliveness. I'm going to go into that a lot deeper in a later episode, but for now, I just want you to understand that the body work and sexual energy work are not really separate conversations. They're part of the same thing. The man who's got up and trained, done breath work, moved his body hard, that man is going to come into the room very differently. It's not about performing strength, but it's more about the fact that he's already met himself and his partner will feel it before he's even said anything, because your partner doesn't feel safe because of the words that are coming out of your mouth. She actually feels safe because of what you really are. And if you're watching this thinking the body stuff can wait until your relationship's sorted. I understand why it can feel that way, but actually the order's back to front. In order to do the real inner work, you require a nervous system that is regulated and a body that is present, because you can't really do deep trauma or emotional work from a body that's dysregulated and checked out or numbed out. So actually there is a really strong argument for training your body first in order to be able to do the inner work. And once you clarify your values, physical discipline almost always will sit near the top, because taking care of your body is an act of integrity. Because this discipline isn't just for your own health, it's really the foundation of everything in your life. Everything comes from this body that you've built a connection with. It's the foundation of leadership. A man who can't lead himself, who can't choose discomfort over sitting on the sofa or sobriety over numbing, can't reliably lead a relationship or a family. And that capacity for discomfort begins here. It's that decision to suck up that discomfort and push yourself, really build that connection between your mind and your body. In the next episode, we're going to talk about why men numb themselves out and the cost this actually has. I would really love it if you left a comment and tell me where you are with your physical work and your mind-body connection, whether that's training, getting sober, cold water immersion. This is where the work really starts. We start from the body, and then everything else will follow from there. Keep showing up, brothers. Realize your potential and remember who you are.